Ujay. How are you? Whoa, it's been cold, freezing cold in El Paso.
Yes.
Even right here, I'm freezing. How are you guys doing? Welcome to the Face of the Church. We have a special guest with us today. First of all, let me welcome Sister Iris, Elder Iris officially. You guys will be seeing her being addressed as Elder Iris. What can I even call you, a pastor? You're a pastor already. I should be calling you Pastor Iris.
I'm not a pastor.
Yeah, you're welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you for having me again.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we have this special man of God here. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we had our conference. How was it, guys? Did you guys enjoy it?
Yes.
Yeah, we had our conference this weekend, and it was beautiful. And we were privileged to have him play the piano, lead us in worship, and Elder Iris here. It was like, whoa, amazing. You guys should hear her sing. Don't be deceived by this quiet outlook. She is really very hot in worship, and I'm so grateful that the Lord used you guys to open up the realm of divine power, authority, and dominion. And I will always want to be around you guys.
Oh.
Thank you. Today we are going to be talking about something. You know, guys, we like talking. The Face of the Church kind of deals with hot topics.
Yes.
Topics that people don't, especially believers, don't want to talk about. So, and one of those topics is the occult. We are going to be sharing how to witness to the gospel to the occult. So, he is an expertise.
Yes.
I lived through that as well, because, you know, actually, when I met you, I'm like, whoa, this is something we really have to discuss, because I came from a lineage of occult members. My grandfather was deep into occultism. So I believe that's why the Lord sometimes knows how to pick out the Davids, you know, out from messed up backgrounds. And I'm one of those people that the Lord has picked up from a very messed up background. So I'm very happy we're going to be talking about this today. So to let our viewers in, can we give them an understanding of what we mean by the occult?
Well, your definition, I liked what you shared.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, what occult organizations want to do, they want to disrupt the identity of a person. So even though we want to reach out and share Christ with them, I know that's the primary focus of us being Christians. We want to hurry up and get that message of the gospel, but there's a lot of barriers that stand in the way. So the first thing we have to recognize is the authority that's behind there. And not so much the spiritual authority, but also the emotional and psychological authority that's having them bound. So there's a system that's in place that has these people bound, and I have to learn how that system works and how it works. So in other words, to identify how to work with them, I have to know what my enemy is first, what their strategy is, how they work. For example, when Jesus was, in fact, we were talking about this last night in my home, when Jesus says we must go across the lake so they can go ahead and witness or deliver the demoniac, he said, what is your name? He says, we are legion, for we are many. Well, when you have a legion army, these legions are disciplined. They know what they're doing, they're well trained, they're the special forces, if you will. So for us to go ahead and work with these kind of people who are involved in the occult, I have to learn what the strategy of the enemy is first. And once I learn that, I have to learn how the system keeps them bound. But then there's an identity that they have given themselves to, so I have to learn how to work with that identity. Once I help them strip that identity of the occult, then I lower their defense mechanisms. So I have these defense mechanisms I have to lower in order for them to, because if I start preaching, we're going to hit these barriers, we're going to hit these walls. So I have to learn how to find out how that enemy works. So basically do a lot of research. Learn how these because with the occult, there's different organizations. They have different tiers of authority. And once I learn how these systems work, then I can go ahead and develop a strategy on how to deal with those things.
Wow. This is amazing. In fact, let me just read Galatians 1:7-8. Evidently, some people are throwing you into confusion and are trying to pervert the gospel of Jesus Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach a gospel other than the one we preach to you, let them be under curse, God's curse.
Yes.
So what we want to actually like you made mention of spiritual authority. Yes, there are some occults that are deeply rooted in darkness. And there are some, like you just pointed out, you gave us a peripheral view of what an occult really means. But there are some that masquerade as churches. So today, actually, we're going to be talking about the ones that really masquerade as churches. Like Brother Paul spoke to the Galatians here. You know, many people are perverting Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ. You know, so what do you have to say?
Yeah, there's a lot of churches that say that they're preaching the gospel, the true gospel, and we have to be wise in what we listen to, because if we don't know the Word of God, it's easy for us to be deceived. And if anyone says God, a non-believer would, if they're seeking the truth, they would talk to somebody that would say God. But if they don't mention Jesus or the true gospel, with their lack of understanding, they will get deceived. And then they will fall into this type of mind control that Daniel is talking about. Because they will take a weak mind and train it. So it's kind of like boot camp in the army. When a person goes into boot camp, everything about who their identity is stripped away. And then everything that the army encompasses as far as their values, what they believe in, how they speak, how they talk, is ingrained in them. And when you see a soldier coming out and they start going to AIT, they all look the same, they dress the same, their posture is the same, their vocabulary is the same, they salute the same, you know, they stand in parade rest the same, they're all exactly a cookie cutter. And so people who are ingrained in an occult, that is the same way. They have the same language, they have the same mannerisms. So you can identify who is with which group because of how they speak, or how they act, or how they respond to you. And so it's very, it's something that we need to address, because what I see is that when someone is in a system like that, the difference between an occult and the true believers of Christ, with the true gospel, is their lack of love. Because with God, all things are love, and they're giving. And so someone who's in an occult, it is more fear-based. And with fear, it is associated with punishment. So if you do good, you follow their system, you get rewarded in some way. Maybe a promotion that they give you, a title or something. They give you some authority or responsibility over people. If you don't follow along in their ways, there is an associated punishment that comes with that. And so it is a fear-based, driven society. And it's not rooted in love. And so that's why I really connected with Daniel when we first met about 10 years ago, because I had gone to a Bible study and he was actually teaching on what his specific niche is in this area is the Jehovah's Witness. And we really connected because it's really about a mindset. And if you can understand the language, you can kind of get into the organization and then bring them out. But how he gets them out is with love. It's beautiful.
I love how you're just making our viewers. I hope you guys are understanding where we are going with this topic. Because we want them to be well educated, you know, in case if you are in it already, or if you have a loved one that is in it, so you can have an educated understanding of what these things really mean, what it stands for. You know, understanding the difference between an occult and true believers in Jesus Christ and the true church is love.
Yes.
There's this absence of love in what they do. We function through love because love gives you freedom.
Yes.
You know, right now you can decide, okay, you don't want to go to this church anymore. You just switch over to another church, and no one is going to be punishing you for that. No one is going to criticize you for that. You know, like I can count how many churches I've visited, you know, how many churches I've become members, because my husband will go sometimes, he will say, oh no, I don't like the way they worship. And I'd say, okay, I'm the obedient wife. And I would say, okay, despite whatever I do out here, hey guys, my husband is still has authority over me. So wherever he wants us to go, we become members. We are free to do that because there is love. The Church of Jesus
Correct.
Christ is love. No one is going to sentence us to 10 years imprisonment because we left their church. But this is absent with the occult. You cannot freely come out and say, okay, I want to join a denomination, I want to go through. That's very, very difficult. Right. So can we share with our viewers what are some of the classical signs to look out for?
Yes. There's what we call the BITE model, B-I-T-E. And there are 4 facets of control. So BIT is an acronym for control of behavior, information, thoughts, and emotion. So this is how it works. For people who are in the occult or a cult, this is how it works. The control of behavior is when an organization develops a relationship with somebody. Once you develop a relationship with somebody, your defense mechanisms come down, just like when a couple is dating or you go to a church and you feel at home, you feel comfortable, and that's the idea, to get you comfortable. Because see, cults, the people in the occult or cults, they're very patient people. And so what they want to do is they want to tear down your defense mechanisms. And once that's done, they can start dropping seeds. And unfortunately, what do seeds do? They replicate themselves. So let's look at how the BITE model works. So you have the control of behavior. Pretty soon the control of behavior is this: who you can associate with, who you cannot associate with, what you can do, what you cannot do, where you can go, where you cannot go, and pretty soon your world becomes really small. Information, the control of information is this: what literature you can read, what you cannot read. What TV you can watch, maybe you can't watch TV. So pretty soon your world gets a little smaller.
Wow.
So when you get control of information, that means that your ability to think outside the box becomes even smaller. And so now your control of information is designed to not only keep your world small, to keep you from being contaminated from outside influences. Because as long as there's an outside influence, you'll never be free to think just like the occult does, or a cult. So your thoughts. You are not allowed to disagree with the dogma. You are not allowed to question the dogma. You are not allowed to disagree, question, anything that's contrary to what they're teaching, okay? Emotion, and that's the big one that drives it. And the emotions that are used to drive the BITE model are fear and guilt. So as long as you keep those implemented, keep that in the forefront, you'll make the BITE model successful. The unfortunate problem with the BITE model is if I'm successful at just controlling one, the behavior, information, thoughts, and emotion, the others will soon follow and the individual is swept away.
Wow.
I could only be just successful in one, because if there's, now see, they say, well, they only recruit the weak-minded people. There's another side to that story. Actually, they're after strong-minded people, and this is why. Because weak-minded people, as however you understand that, means this: if you're weak-minded, that means that you'll never suit my purposes because you're free to go anywhere. You can make your own choices. But the strong-minded people, those are the ones that will give you their allegiance. Those are the ones that will fight for you and that will defend you. So, but on the other side of the coin, when it comes to weak-minded people, yeah, because they weren't grounded in the Word, they didn't give themselves to the Holy Spirit to give them a teacher and to ingrain that in the Spirit as a defense mechanism. No, we're not going to go there. So when it comes to strengths like the occult, they're looking for people who are extremely strong and who know what they're doing. For example, let's look at different groups. Like in Japan, Shoko Asahara. He was looking for the elite of the Japanese society to follow him because he knew they would serve his purposes. So when it comes to the occult, they want people who are going to go who have strong allegiances because they know they're going to serve Satan very well.
Wow. That kind of points, as you're saying this, I'm reflecting back to my grandfather. The kind of cult he was in, my grandfather was in the medical field. They had all the cream of the society in that group. Yeah, you better know what you're doing. Yeah. So I never saw a poor man or someone that was nothing in that group. They were business owners, parastatal owners, people that own the society.
And you know why that happens? Because I think even though we were successful in some areas in whether it's education or business, there's still the human need to be validated by somebody. And if somebody doesn't meet that need, somebody else will.
Yep.
And you know, remember what the scripture says, it is not good that man should be alone. You know, when our love becomes homeless, let's say there's a relationship that's broken or there's a death in the family. When love becomes homeless, remember that scripture, it is not good that that man should be alone. Man is made in the image of love. Love needs a home, and it has to grasp onto something. So whether your grandfather or my family that I grew up in, I grew up in a family of 5 generations Jehovah's Witnesses. So the problem is that there's always this need of wanting to be loved and be accepted by somebody. It doesn't matter who. And as long as you have that, your defense mechanism comes down and you have that embrace that you've always needed and wanted.
Wow.
It doesn't matter what group accepts you.
And guess what? A part of the name of my grandfather's group was something brotherhood.
Oh.
It has a brotherhood attached to it.
Yes.
And you could see them, because I could remember, you know, growing up with my grandparents, that sometimes they do their meeting in our house, you know, and this is how they hug themselves and call themselves brothers.
Validation.
That's just what you just said here right now.
Yes.
So, brothers, wow. That's how the enemy goes in to capture their minds, you know, presenting them with false brotherhood.
But how does that happen? There's a 3-stage process on that, and we're going to call it freezing, change, and unfreezing. Have you heard of those terms before?
No.
This is fascinating. So freezing has to do with challenging your identity. So what the job is of freezing is to break the person down, little by little. Now see, people involved in the occult, when they're recruiting people, see, people don't join groups like the occult. They're recruited into. So their job, first of all, is to develop trust and rapport. Once you do that, they're very, very patient. Because remember, unfortunately, love can be perverted. And so
Exactly.
they know the message of the gospel. Love is what? Patient. So they're going to love you, and in that process of love, they're very patient in their recruitment process. So little by little, when you love somebody, what happens? Until you become one, each part of the identity starts falling apart until you become one. So their job is to tear you down little by little, but you don't even know it. It's a very, very slow process. So your reality is challenged as to what you are and what your world is. So once that's done, then we go into the change process, and that's where the indoctrination process is, little by little. They don't do it all at once, because if they do, what we call the authentic identity, the person you were born, rises up, and there's this barrier, there's this resistance. So now you have the change process where just little ideas are being brought little by little by little. Now we have the unfreezing, where now we are assigned a mentor. And that mentor is going to follow you every step of the way to make sure you're towing the line, to making sure that the indoctrination process is going the way it's supposed to. So in that unfreezing process is where we see what we call the BITE model coming in, the control of behavior, information, thoughts, and emotion.
And sort of it will masquerade as caring.
Yes.
Yes, it will masquerade as they care so
Because
much
they have to bring you
about
in, so it's kind of like a hook. But once you're in, because you feel that you're loved, then that's when they can implement the BITE model.
And you know what we call that? We call that love bombing. It's so good to see you. You look wonderful today. You're dressed very nice. How are you doing? Do you have family? I bet they're as wonderful as you are. So the point is that wow, this place must be a nice place, because look how they're accepting me.
Exactly.
And they know my background, and my background doesn't matter. They're still loving me. They must have the truth.
Wow, this is well crafted. Well crafted.
Deliberately designed.
Well crafted. Do you guys know something? When my grandfather passed away, because usually they will present when someone is when you start getting older, they want you to present someone that will replace you after you're gone. So my father being the first son, my grandfather wanted him to come and replace him. It wasn't like my father was a born again or anything, but they already knew what this was. You know, they've seen it. They know this wasn't any good thing. You know, it's just, you know, you are so known in the society. You're well respected, and that's all about it. What else do you get? What else are you gaining? Because there were so many other dark things that were happening within the family. You know, so my father said no, that he cannot.
Wow.
He cannot. So, and it's so unfortunate that when people join these cults, they don't know what they're doing to their generations down.
It's a very good point. I'm a student of history. There's a book that I purchased online that I could not put down because I had often wondered what happened to the descendants of the Nazis, for example. Well, many of them have chosen not to have children. They want to kill off that seed because they're afraid of it coming back. So rather than have children and rather to raise up this demon again, many of them have chosen, of course a lot of them have passed on it, but many of them chose to not have
posterity.
Because when the Nazis were all accused of the war crimes and they were sentenced to death and everything, so now they have families that live there. So now you have generations who have chosen, no, it stops here.
Yeah, and that's a very good thing they are doing, really, because it carries on. Do you know, it got to a point in my life where I literally cursed my grandfather because I now, when I became a born again, it's like all hell was let loose. I'm like, I had to call my father and told him, look, your father didn't know what he was doing when he joined that cult. He didn't know it was going to affect us the way it was so dark. Look at what he did. He doesn't even love you, let alone loving his grandchildren. And my father was broken.
Yeah.
Because when we do all these things, we are leaving it for our younger generations, you know.
Yes, it's true.
It's like, I don't even want to think about, I don't like going back to everything that happened. But sometimes as we're discussing these things, it just brings back emotions, you know. So can you imagine your grandchild cursing you after you've gone?
Right.
Isn't that very painful?
Yes.
Very, very painful.
Well, the book that I have discusses that is if you saw the movie Schindler's List, the butcher Plashow, his granddaughter found out it was hidden from her who her grandfather was. And the name of the book is My Grandfather Would Have Had Me Shot. And the reason why, because his granddaughter is half German, half Nigerian, growing up in Israel.
Woo!
Wow.
So now she finds out who her grandfather was, and it shook her to the core. She found out literally accidentally at a bookstore, looking at a book, finding who her grandfather was. And of course, Nazism was rooted in the occult. I don't know if you knew that.
I knew, yeah.
The Nazism is rooted in the occult. So she finds out who her grandfather was. And the emotion overtook her so much, she literally fainted at the store. They had to come and revive her. They had to call her husband to come and get her. And for years, she's still struggling with this. She wasn't even involved, but she's carrying the guilt of what her grandfather had done.
And that guilt will open up more avenues for the enemy to attack her. I don't want to even go through some of the attacks I've gone through. I've literally seen the devil himself come to fight me. So those are just little. If people can only understand that when they do these things, they are opening up doors for their innocent generations down the line. But maybe it will help them to make better decisions. You know, our time is going, because we will continue with this topic. This is so vast that we cannot even finish it within this 30 minutes that we have. So we are going to be having a spill over. So, but as we still have little time, can we go ahead and discuss why is it difficult for members of the occult to come out, even when they want to come out?
I think because of that fear that they have. Because I think in some organizations, they not only come after you, but they come after your family as a threat. And so if you choose to leave the organization, there's some repercussions that happen to your family. And of course, you want to protect your family. And in doing that, you stay with the organization because the courage is not there to leave. And they don't know who God is and what God can do in their life. And so they can't trust in that. They have to trust in themselves. And so they continue to stay in.
Yeah. What kind of threats?
And dependency.
Dependency.
They come to depend upon it because if that's their only source of food, spiritual or emotional food, I don't have anywhere else to go, so they're trapped.
Wow. Even when they know they're going straight to hell. If they know if
I've had them tell me, even if I was wrong, I'm still not going to change it.
Wow.
I've had them tell me that because of the dependency. The need is so strong, it creates this bond and said, even if I'm wrong, I would never leave.
Wow, this is very strong.
And that's where the fear comes in.
This is very, very strong. So even if you know that your eternity is going to be spent in hell with the devil, you still want to stay.
Yes. It's a sense of belonging. And I think that's the reason why, you know, in recruiting, they want the younger generation, because if there's no love in the home and the truth isn't being taught, then the organization is gonna find them so they can embrace them in their family.
And one thing about generations, the thing that's frightening to me, if I may use that word, is that with a generation to be passed on, like, for example, in the occult, so somebody might do something incredible, and the next generation say, you know what, I'm going to do better than that. And with each generation, it gets worse and worse. I want to push the envelope. I want to do better than my forefathers did. That's ugly.
This is very, very, very ugly. We hope someone is getting educated, because this is just about educating people, you know, about these things, because they masquerade. You don't see the ugliness, you know, until when you are in there. And even when you eventually find out how ugly it is, it's difficult to come out. So, but Christ has come.
Amen.
You know, we have hope. You know, no sin is so...
It's very possible. With God, all things are possible.
Possible, exactly. And that's what we are bringing, that possibility to set people free. That's what we are bringing to the table right here, right now. Let's, because we know we are going to be continuing next time, but let's still go ahead and let's share some practical information to those, you know, caught up in the occult. We have 1 minute. I know you are already in the field helping people. Can you share some of the things you do, you know, to help them come out?
First of all, I want to establish trust and rapport with the individual. Once I do that, their defense mechanisms come down, and little by little I start planting seeds of doubt about the organization that they are in, and to invite them to investigate it for themselves. My word may not be good enough, they won't trust me, but I want them to investigate for themselves to see that what I'm saying is actually factually true.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Guys, we're going to be continuing. This is really very big, that we literally just touched the surface, because we want you to get the freedom that Christ has come to give with his blood, with his dying on the cross. So feel free to visit his website and get more information about what he does. But we'll be having him again next time, so because we will continue. So remain blessed until we come your way again next time. This is the Face of the Church. We are saying bye. And God bless you.